But I think I'm part of the problem in the sense that sometimes I look at people, and this is just business content as a whole, right? Mm-hmm. I look at people, I look at the way they have, like, let's say someone makes a video. I watch the video, gets like 200 views. And I know why it's getting 200 views. They have a great idea, but the way they communicate that idea, mm-hmm. it just doesn't hit in the same way. So I've gone and I've like tweaked the idea and made it more palatable mm-hmm. for the average everyday human, and it'll get 100,000 views or 200,000 views. Mm-hmm. And people could theoretically say, oh, well, you stole my joke. And it's like, oh, Drake says it best. I guess he stole a beat off of P. Diddy.
Right.
And he was like, listen, man, you wouldn't have made it that. It wouldn't have become that if you made the song. It wouldn't have been a hit, but I made it, so it's a hit. In the same way, like you made your video, you said your video, I made it with the same message, but mine just hit because of the way I communicated it. So with comedy, it's weird because it's like, yeah, you can have a joke, or have a funny story, how my friend accidentally kicked his cat. I don't know, something silly, right? Mm-hmm. But you could say it, you could deliver it in like the worst way. And it has, like, it's a funny story, but the way you delivered it didn't hit. And then someone takes it and their delivery is much better.
Right.
The way they build it up is much better. And it becomes a big joke. I don't know how I feel about that, because it's like, are you going to let that little thing, because if you had it, it would have been wasted. Mm-hmm. You know, or are you going to take that and potentially turn it into something great?
Because it all depends, because for one, if it's like your lived experience and that's like you, because with comedy, oftentimes your entire life is tied to it. Mm-hmm. So if you're somebody like, for example, like a Matt Rife, right? When he blew up and everything, it was his lived experience. Somebody like a Bill Burr, somebody like a Patrice O'Neal, somebody like a Dave Chappelle. They are great masters at their craft, but you have to continually, work at that. And one of the things now with social media where it's difficult is if you're on the lower end and you're working on material, but people are recording, the way stand-up is supposed to work is you come up with a set, you keep doing it and refining it until you get to, all right, cool, now I know how I want to, deliver this. More often than not, you're working on that set for a year minimum, unless you're somebody like a Louis C.K., somebody like him, or maybe even like a Cat Williams, where you're constantly changing the material year on end, like a George Carlin, where you have a new special every single year or something like that. But it's so difficult to get to that level. So if you're on a lower end and you're working on something, you're like, all right, cool, I got like 4 months in to this material trying to go and master it. Somebody walks in, that's an interesting story. They just take that, and because they already know how to structure, layer, and all this other stuff, they take your entire lived experience, take it to the stage. Well, now you can't do that no more.
Fair.
And you're just there like, oh, wait a minute, this is me.
Yeah.
And it's happened on so many different levels, and it's a cutthroat business. So because you're at a point now where on the business side, you understand marketing. You understand how to go viral and everything. So you could see an idea. You may not take it word for word. You may dress it up and make it better, because how many people on social media are making similar content about topics? Everybody is, but you have to figure out a way to make it unique and curate it to your style. The only difference is in comedy, it's personal, it's intimate, and then now you take that and you make it your own, and now you're sitting there like, oh, wait a minute, that ain't even your story, you never experienced it, this is real to me. There's an emotional attachment.
I think that's part of the game, though. So like I look at the world as a competitive it's a competitive world. And a great example, let's say you have a business idea, and that's why everyone gatekeeps their business ideas, like, I don't want to tell anyone because they're going to copy it. And it's true, though, to an extent. Like, let's say you have a business idea but you just don't know how to do it. Big company sees it, they just fucking copy you, they do it 10 times better, they execute it, you're fucked, right? That's just the nature of the world. You got to get good, otherwise someone's gonna blow you out the water.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Because if somebody like Cat Williams, he's able to survive because he's so good at what it is that he does, right? And he's been doing it now for it's going on 40 years. He's been doing actually about like 30 plus. So yeah, I guess you could say like 40 years, because he started like 91. So at that point it's like 30, and he's pushing like about like 32, 33 years he's been in comedy. But he's so incredibly good. He was speaking for like the comedian, somebody who's coming up at the bottom. And there was even a video that started circulating on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, where they had an old video of Bernie Mac when he was talking about like, hey, you don't want, if you're an upcoming comedian, you don't want to be telling jokes in a room of comedians. But the problem is when you're coming up, open mics, who's working on their material at open mics? Other comedians. If you go up to, just a random crowd, you get some stage time or whatever, you have to eat bombing. and freaking failing left and right to figure out how it works, but there's still other comedians. So you got to get so good to where even if they steal your stuff, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But it's so demoralizing going through. That's why so many people can't make it.
But I also think like if you, because we live in the world of social media, let's say someone steals your joke, if you're clipping all your jokes and posting them, you can be like, yo, look, he said this here, but I have proof that I said it first 2 years ago. Now you make the other person look bad.
Yeah, but you have to get to the point where you perform it so good to where now they'll be like, oh, fuck that guy who stole my stuff, or fuck that girl who stole my stuff.
Fair.
So you gotta get so good, and that was one of the things that he was talking about, because it was like if you go back and you listen to the entire thing in its entirety, because a lot of times people will just, it's 2.5 hours.
Right.
So unless you have time to sit there and listen to everything through, or maybe you listen to like a portion and then you finish it up from there, you're gonna go watch clips, right? And throughout the entire thing, it's like in between the lines of how he's speaking to those people. And if you're a comedian and you're listening to it, you're like, okay, I understand, because you want to be righteous as a comedian to a certain degree. Like Patrice O'Neal always talked about, like there's a self-sabotage at one point where you got to like